What's up, boxing YouTube? What's up, San Isidro, Puerto Rico? What's up, East Harlem? Stand up. Welcome back to Boxing Unwrapped. So Alberto Puello tested positive for PEDs. What does that mean? When was that? Well, let me tell you about it. This was about 2 years ago. I was actually made aware by a viewer, and as I did my research, I see that it's come up again, right? And I said, well, damn, let me see what happened here, you know? So I did my research, I looked around, and I found out exactly why. And I found an interview with Broadway Joe. Shout out to Broadway Joe. And Alberto goes into detail about what happened and why he tested positive. And I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna go into depth in the split screen in a minute. But it's basically something similarly, not exactly, that I went through in my life. And so I kind of relate to it. I'm gonna tell you about that a little bit. But first, if you're new here, thank you for picking this video and thank you for staying tuned to this point. If you're new, please consider subscribing. Definitely like and share. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you for returning. And please also like and share. It helps the channel a lot. The last two videos, for some reason, is not you guys. You're interacting with them, but YouTube is not pushing them out. So please, I'll put in the body in the description below my last two videos, so you guys will check those out. And I'll put one at the end of the cards here, or both of them at the end of the cards. So if you reach the end, please also click on those and check those out. And real quick, for those of you guys that are tuning in tomorrow as of this video, for the Eubanks and Conor Benn fight, that fight, I think Conor Benn is going to win easily just because of the weight drain issues that Eubanks is having. And I don't think, and just the veracity that Conor Benn comes into, even though he's jumping up, the only way Conor Benn loses this is if he's just too big for Conor Benn and the dehydration doesn't matter. So I expect a violent knockout at some point around round 5 or 6 when the dehydration really starts to kick in. I feel bad for Eubanks, but that's just the reality of it. Rehydration is crazy. We got to revisit this. So I think he's going to get knocked out pretty viciously. If that doesn't happen, I will be majorly impressed, that was the right word, with Eubanks, given the circumstances that he's put himself at because of the money grab, and that's crazy. But anyway, let's jump into this video with Alberto Puello and Broadway Joe. Let's take a look. Alberto Puello is going to give us his reasoning, his excuse, his reason, all of that good stuff on why he actually, tested positive for this situation. And it's interesting. And I'm going to give you my opinion if I think he's lying or not at the end of it. So let's go here and let's play this video.
A los fanáticos, ¿qué fue que pasó? El año pasado,
Spanish, but has a subtitle, as you can see.
Tenía una pelea que estaba supuesta a pasar con Rolando Romero.
I remember that he was supposed to fight Rolly, and I totally forgot about that. It was such a blip for me. But that would have been interesting. That probably would have been Rolly's first loss, but anyway.
Sí. Y desgraciadamente diste positivo por una sustancia. ¿Puede explicarle a los fanáticos qué fue que pasó?
Bueno, sabe, yo después de la pelea del título, yo fui a mi casa normalmente, como hacen todos los boxeadores. Yo fui a ver mi familia y estar allá con ellos. ¿Qué pasa? Que yo y mi esposa llevamos un lazo de tiempo anteriormente.
So what he's explaining is basically he's been trying to have kids with his wife for a very long time. Now his wife prior to him has 2 other children, but they have none together. So they've been trying ever since they got together, but for some reason they can't conceive. Now this is something that I actually have in common with him, because when we got married to my wife and we decided to have children, we couldn't conceive at all. It was something very personal and very stressful. We went through the IVF system and all that other stuff. The doctors couldn't figure out really who was at fault, if any, what was going on. So I understand. Eventually, I got 2 daughters out of the deal. It wasn't through the IVF process, but I don't know if that actually helped with the treatment, because they give you treatments for IVF before you can get the IVF done. And we never got the IVF done, but I think the treatments in between probably helped. So we got 2 beautiful children out of it. But I can relate to him having that struggle. So, just in case that goes without saying. I don't know if it matters, but all right.
Intentando concebir un hijo, y ya trataron varicocele grado 3.
So he's saying here he got diagnosed with varicocele grade 3, and that's in the testicles, and it can cause great pain. It can restrict sperm production in men, that kind of thing.
Estaba en grado 3, varicocele bilateral, creo que se llama.
Yes,
Me lo
bilateral.
detectaron y la única opción para yo poder procrear mi baby era operarme. Ese problema no tiene solución médica, no tiene...
So what he's explaining here basically is that there is no actual remedy that you can take chemically, right? And by that meaning, you can't take a pill, you can't take a shot, you can't, go to some shaman and rub some stuff on your nuts, pause, and it's gone. No, the only way is to actually go in because it's a bilateral. It's kind of like a restriction, and it's almost like it's constricting in the testicles, and that causes pain also. And he goes into that. And so in doing that, there's no other solution but to reverse it with an operation. So he had to undergo that.
Ningún medicamento que lo que había que hacer era... Entonces ahí es donde fui al médico, me detectaron eso y me sometí a la operación. Independientemente quería tener mi bebé, pero también el doctor me dijo que
So there was no certainty with the operation either. So although he can reverse it and the pain will more than likely be gone because he talks about it, I don't know if he already did or was going to, about the pain. But, permanent damage could already have been done, right? Because when you're restricting heat and all that other stuff takes, into effect, maybe the things that didn't develop properly or over time became degraded due to the fact that it was so constricted and malformed in there. So, that's a tough thing to hear.
El operarme no era 100% seguro. Yo le dije a él, piel totalmente,
He just went in there.
Tenía mucho dolor de
Talked about the
testículo y no me dejaban dormir.
Can't
Eso siempre me
sleep.
atacaba a la hora de descansar. Nunca, cuando yo estaba en movimiento, todo bien, pero a la hora que me operó, todo bien, gracias al Señor.
So he came out good.
Después de eso
operation.
pasó un lazo de 15
Here's
días
the part that's interesting.
para mi recuperación y entonces de 15 días después me recetó los medicamentos para yo...
So this is the interesting part. So now he gave him 15 days post recovery for the operation, and after that he put him on a medication. That medication was to, if there is damage for whatever little production he has, that he can, one, up the production, at least chemically, help it up it, and two, just keep it as healthy as possible so he can try to procreate as naturally as possible.
Entonces fortalecer mi espermatozoide y que se llama...
Clomiphene is what they gave him, and clomiphene again is part of that. Now I wasn't exactly sure what clomiphene will do as far as performance enhancement. So I never thought about looking it up. But now that we're here, you and I are both gonna go clomiphene for men. Clomiphene is sometimes used in men to address how low testosterone levels improve sperm production, particularly in cases of male infertility. While primarily used in female infertility, it can be prescribed off-label for men, meaning it's used for a purpose other than initial FDA approval. Clomiphene also works by stimulating the pituitary gland, which release hormones to boost testosterone and sperm production. Okay, so now from there you can kind of understand why it could be used as a PED, because it improves testosterone production, which improves muscle tone building. Now you get it, right? So if you use that in conjunction with working out, training, you can become stronger, because now as you get older, men stop producing as much testosterone, so you got to replace it. Either get a replacement or you just age however you want to age. And that's how white men sometimes they just kind of like degrade as they get older, because testosterone is less and less and less. But if you kind of replace it with an artificial testosterone, it'll actually help you stay, keep muscle tone and gain muscle, as you work out to a later date in a later age. So you can see why this will be a performance enhancing drug if used in the wrong way.
Se le dice rejum, pero tiene citrato de clorifeno, escudriñar y ver qué podía pasar.
So he said maybe the doctor didn't know that this could be a performance enhancing issue.
Me lo tomaba 3 veces al día, el medicamento, y el doctor me lo recetó por 3 meses. Al cabo del tiempo de un mes y algo, ya mi esposa estaba embarazada.
So you see how much the condition was constricting his infertility, right? So he got on this clomiphene. Clomiphene, he was on it for a month and a half, and his wife already was pregnant. Boom. At that point, he said, I'm done. I don't need to take it anymore because my wife's already pregnant. Why do I need to take this? So that's what he's like, he thought that he didn't need to disclose it to any governing body, because he had been off of it by the time the fight came around, training and fight came around for 2.5 months. So he thought not being a scientist or a doctor or consulting a nutritionist or somebody like that, he thought he was clean.
Ahí mismo dejé de tomarlo. Un mes y algo. No vi la necesidad. Oye,
that's what he's saying there.
Y por eso no vi la
necesidad. Te quitaron el título.
Son cosas de la vida y si Dios permitió eso, lo veo como...
So the most important part here is he doesn't deny it. He doesn't deny that it happened. He doesn't deny taking it. He doesn't deny anything. And he's saying that it's not even, a mistake, but a lesson learned, right? So he got stripped, all this other stuff. That's what he's saying here. Actually, Broadway Joe asked him, how do you feel when you got stripped? That you couldn't say you was world champion anymore, things like that. And he goes into how that mentally affected him. Having worked so hard to become a world champion and then not being able to call himself a world champion, but not because he lost it in the ring, but because he got stripped of a simple life lesson that could have probably been avoided had more questions been asked. So now, if you tell me, was he a drug cheat? No, I believe him wholeheartedly. One, because it's such a specific thing to cite, right? When you say like the Canelo thing, I'm not saying Canelo did it on purpose or not, and it was legitimate or not. What I'm saying is use it as an example, right? And because even Fury uses tainted meat, which is a real thing, especially in meat production, when you want a bigger animal to give more meat out of it. Pause. But his was so medically specific. He, for him to be lying about it, he would have to have done research and all, and this could be easily disputed or debunked by people close to him, around him, whom, it could have been debunked. The fact that he gives such a tight timeline of how long he was on it, what he was on it for, why he was prescribed it, and when you look up the actual situation, why it was done, what it actually does, matches up with what he's saying. He knew a lot about it. He knew a lot about what's going on. So I say, Puello not unknowingly took it. So everybody who's, on the internet now, because the fight's coming up, saying he's a drug cheat, PD, all this other stuff, I implore you, and every single time you hear this, to please make, no matter who the fighter is, whether it's a fighter you like or not, it doesn't matter. Do your research. Don't judge. Don't jump to conclusions. Make your conclusions after you have all the evidences in the world in front of you, if you're gonna even try to make one. But if if you're gonna speak on it, please be informed. And that's one thing I hate about Twitter. Every time I go on there, it's a cesspool anyway, but I gotta go on there sometimes just to get news. It is a cesspool of misinformation. People just rapping, yelling out things, and they don't even do any research. It's kind of crazy, because this is people's livelihoods. Now, if you get caught like Fernando Vargas did, different story. Fernando Vargas, he did it for performance-enhancing reasons. Shane Mosley, for performance-enhancing reasons. Evander Holyfield, for performance-enhancing reasons. Other than that, and there's some fighters that I liked watching growing up, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not afraid to say, yeah, they did it for performance-enhancing reasons. But when there was serious doubt, so that if it was for performance-enhancing reasons, you got to take it into account. So anyway, but let me know down below, what do you think? Does this clear it up for you? Does this muddy the waters for you? Or are you indifferent? It doesn't matter. You just say, he's a cheat, a cheat is a cheat. Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video, and I'm out. Peace.